Today I'm adding interest to a clean and simple card with texture. Hello there, Michelle Short here with Terrific Tags with Michelle. I'm here on the Altenew YouTube channel twice a month. So if you like my videos, I'd love for you to subscribe. So let's get started. I've got a panel of classic Crest 110 solar white cardstock that I'm adding onto my sticky mat. I'm then taking the Ocean Dreams Fresh Dye Ink Mini Cube collection, and I'm taking 3 colours from this collection: the Let Us Celebrate, Easy Breezy and Ride the Wave. I thought that these colours would blend quite nicely together. I'm using small blending brushes, so I'm loading up my blending brush onto the ink pad. I do like to dab off the excess ink onto something. In this case, I'm using my sticky mat. And then I'm using that brush to blend the ink onto the cardstock. And I'm just going to add the colours in kind of like a random way on this panel of cardstock. I'm going to cut my tags from it, and I thought it'd be quite nice to have the tags kind of look a little bit like the colours sort of blending between the 3 tags. So that's why I wanted to use the one piece of cardstock today. So I've used the Let Us Celebrate first, and now I'm going in with Easy Breezy, which is a really nice turquoise shade. And I'm not paying too much attention here to how I'm actually blending, because I am going to add a little bit of water on top, and that's going to help with the blending. So again, just going kind of like random blobs here onto the cardstock, and then I can finish off here with this lovely blue shade. And this colour in particular, I'm getting a really awful blending. Like I say, I do usually dab off the excess ink, and I do think that that gives me a better blend, but I was doing this quite quickly, and so I didn't really kind of dab off too much, and so it looks a complete mess, but I promise you it does look a little bit better in the end. I did lose a little bit of that turquoise shade with that darker blue, so I am going back in here and adding a little bit more of that, kind of going over where I'd already gone. And then because there were a few little gaps of white between the green and some of the other shades, I am going to go back in with that green as well, just again over where I've already been. And then, like I say, it looks a complete mess at this point, but I am going to bring in some water. So this is the fine mister bottle, and although I'm not using watercolour paper here and I'm just using normal cardstock, I do get a really lovely reaction here. So I kind of get like some water droplets, and that adds some texture. Although I am adding texture with an embossing folder as well, I think not only does this water kind of blend the colours together, it also adds those water droplets that add that texture as well, and I really love how it turned out. So I'm just bringing in my heat tool here so that I can dry this panel, and I am going to dry it so that it's pretty much completely dry, because I do want to do die cutting, and die cutting is a little bit difficult if you have any moisture in your cardstock. So just drying from the front and the back there. And then once that's dry, I can bring in my tag. So this is one of the smaller tags from the Terrific Tags die set. And I want to have it so that the tag has got some of the green, some of the turquoise, and also some of the blue. But like I say, I want it to have it so that the tags kind of look a little bit like the colours all blend between all 3 of them. So wherever I place my first one, I do need to then try and place the second and the third one in a similar kind of orientation on that panel. So I've placed that down with some low tack tape and run that through my die cutting machine. And now I can do the same thing for the second one. So I am leaving just a tiny little gap in between. And then, like I say, trying to have it so that the height is pretty much the same, so that the colours sort of blend. They don't perfectly, but I do think it adds sort of like an extra added detail onto the card. So I've got my 3 tags here. I'm then taking the Diamond Stars 3D embossing folder. This is one of my favourites because although it adds a lot of texture, it doesn't add it in like a bold way. It's quite a subtle pattern. So I'm just lining up those tags. I don't need them to be completely lined up, but again, kind of like so that the pattern is sort of running between the 3 tags. So placing those inside, and then I can close that embossing folder. And recently I've been really loving my old Cuttlebug with these embossing folders. So I'm just going to run that through my die cutting machine. And that's going to add the texture onto those tags. So I can open that embossing folder and you can see there that I've got that lovely texture on the tag. And then I can just pop out all of the holes there for those tags as well. And I really love the colours on these tags. I do want to add a sentiment onto the tag, so I'm using the Mighty Alphabet die set. Again, one of my favourite older sets. I really love kind of like the tall, skinny font of them. And I'm going to spell out the word Dad, so I'm going to have each letter on a tag. So I'm just die cutting the D and the A here from some more classic Crest £110 solar white cardstock. Just cutting that panel down a little bit so that I can run that through my die cutting machine. And then I can just pop out those letters. And obviously I do need to die cut another D for the word Dad. But I am actually going to cut them a lot more so that I've got 3 for each of the letters, so that I can stack them up one on top of each other, and that's going to add some dimension. Because I'm using the texture in the background, I do want to make sure that these letters really pop out from it, and a great way to do that is to make them a little bit 3D. I'm only using 3 layers here, but I could definitely go in with like 5 or something like that, and that would just bring them out even further. I could also cut these from some foam sheet or something like that and just add the cardstock letter on the top, and that would also give me that dimension. But I'm not always a fan of using the foam sheet. Sometimes I think it distorts the letters a little bit, so I'm just using the cardstock here, adding some liquid glue in between each layer so that I can stack them up. And I'm using that liquid glue because it does just give me that wiggle time to try and line them up as best as possible. I can then add some more liquid glue onto the back of the letters, and then I can place them down onto the tags. And I do think that the sizing of these letters works really nicely with the sizing of these tags. Because, like I say, they are very tall, they do fit these size of tags really nicely. But if you had a smaller alphabet set, you could definitely create smaller tags as well, and that would work really nicely. I am just using the 3 letters today because I'm spelling out the word Dad, but this would work really nicely for personalised cards, to have like the name of a person, and you could obviously create lots of tags if you had a longer name. So just popping something heavy on there while that glue dries, because I am adding them onto texture. It is just going to take a little bit extra for that glue to dry. I've now got some more white cardstock that I'm going to stamp my accompanying sentiment on top. This is from the Bold Sentiment set, another one of my older favourites. I'm using a lot on this card today, and I'm using the sentiment that says "You're the best ever," and I thought that this could be used in a few different ways. I could say "You're the best ever, Dad," or I could say "Dad, you're the best ever," but I decided to do "Dad, you're the best," and I'm going to cut off the word ever when I die cut it out into a strip. So I'm inking up the sentiment using Obsidian Pigment Ink. Just inking that up really well because this is a solid image. I can then flip over that top flip plate of the stamp wheel and press that down. And I am going to stamp this twice just to make sure that that dark black ink is really nice and dark and crisp. So I can ink up the sentiment again and then stamp that down on top. And although I'm using this sentiment in particular, I thought that it would work quite nicely for like a thank you card for a dad, or a Father's Day card for a dad. It could be used for lots of different occasions, which is quite nice. So I've cut that down into a strip, and now I'm adding a fine liner pen around the outside. This is the brush tip from the fine liner pen set, and it's going to colour the outside edges of the cardstock and make it look like I was using a black cardstock rather than using black ink on white cardstock. I think it just finishes it off nicely. Kind of just neatens it up a little bit. So now the adhesive is dried on the back of the letters, I can add some twine through the top of the tag. Ordinarily, when I'm creating tags, I do like to add like really big bows, but I wanted this card to be a little bit more simplistic. So I'm just going to cut off that twine there a little bit shorter. So it's just got that tiny little bit of twine, but I do still think it finishes off the tag nicely. So just making sure that that's the length that I want it to be, and I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm just going to do the same thing for the other tags, and now I can add some instant dimension foam tape onto the back of them. So I'm adding 2 strips of the foam tape, and then I can add some smaller strips in the inside pieces, just to make sure that those are really well covered with that foam tape. And you can see here how the letters really pop against that texture in the background, but I do really love having that texture. It definitely does add something to a clean and simple card. I've now got an A2 size white card base, so this is a finished size of 4 1/4 inches by 5.5 inches, and it's a side folding card. I have marked a little kind of pencil line at the top where I think the center is, so I've just measured it out, and so I can see where I want to place the tags. I want to make sure that that middle one is as centered as possible, so just placing them all down so that I can kind of get a look of where I think they're going to be placed. Obviously this does fill up the whole of the card base here with these tags. If I'd done smaller tags they wouldn't, but I actually really like how it fills up the design of the card. So I've removed the backings off of that foam tape, and now I can place the middle one in the center. I'm just trying to line it up so that there's the same amount of gap at the top of the tag and also the bottom. So once I'm happy, I'm just going to lightly press that down, and then I can remove the other tags and see if I think it is centered, and I think it is. So I can then place the other 2 on either side. So just trying to line it up with the bottom of the other tag there. And then I can do the same thing for the other side, just leaving a small gap in between the tags. I can then erase that pencil line with an eraser. I don't want to leave that on there, but I have accidentally done that in the past. I've then added some foam tape onto the back of the sentiment strip, and then I can pop that down. And then I apologise that I'm using these again, but these are my favourite embellishment at the moment, and these are the crystal clear enamel dots. And I thought that I would just add 3 around that sentiment strip. Just adds a little bit extra interest onto the card, but in a subtle way. And so that is the card finished for today. Adding texture with embossing folders is definitely one of my go-to to add a little bit of extra interest onto a clean and simple card. Links to the products that I used will be listed in the description bar on YouTube and also over on the Altenew blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Hey there, Lydia here. I really do hope that you've just enjoyed the video. If so, please subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Also, turn on the notification bell so you can get your daily dose of crafty techniques and tutorials just like this. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.